They cultivate the kids to be able to be controlled. Are kids all right? Short answer, no, they're not. Why is that, though? What about modern day USA creates such an awful environment to raise kids? There are several components that play into it. First and foremost, though, our society doesn't give children the ability to cultivate creativity, their individualism, even encourage critical thinking. They cultivate the kids to be able to be controlled. And that is a very sad thought. But what are the things that play into children in present day USA not living up to their full potential? So like I mentioned, there are several elements that go into creating a positive experience for a child. Basics are quality time, quality education, and ensuring that they are able to face, or at least have the skills to be able to face life in general. I came across several really unfortunate statistics as I was looking into this, and I was so disappointed. Most kids go to school at 5 years old. Even before that, some kids are in preschool or however that is set up within like their family. The idea of having a bunch of the same age children learning the same things all at once in classrooms typically averaging between, say, 20 and 25 or 30 even. That doesn't make sense if you consider it. One, as humans, we all develop at different stages. Some of us are very good at certain things naturally, and when we play into our natural abilities, we can become really good at one thing or several things. But I think the things that is missing is children are in school for 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, depending again on their home situation. And they eat at least one, sometimes 2 meals a day that are not the most nutritious. And that's another thing that plays into raising a successful child, feeding them what they need for both their bodies and their minds. Food is such an essential part of everything we do. If we're eating good, healthy food, it doesn't have to be expensive food. It's just a balanced diet, not the food pyramid suggested diet, because that's that is not good. It is making sure that they're drinking enough water, making sure they're getting fruits and vegetables, and not processed junk food, because that leads to so many, first of all, health problems. Childhood obesity is through the roof, and people make the comment, oh, they'll grow out of it, don't worry. They may once they hit puberty, but the habits are still there and have been instilled in them. And again, this is understandable because in our current society, parents often have to hold down at least one, if not 2 or 3 jobs to just afford to live. So family dinners are not happening in most American households. So that right there takes away good quality time and also good quality food, because it is so much easier just to throw in a pizza or pick up some fast food on the way home. And that is, one, teaching kids terrible habits. And also, it doesn't set them up to be the best that they can be. Because when we go back to basics, there are certain things that every human being needs that they are not getting. And it's really sad. Another statistic that I came across is reading levels. Kids don't read nearly as much as in the old days. And the average child is reading at several grade levels lower than they should be. More than 60% of US public and non-public school students were below grade level in reading. Why? Why are people not interested in reading, especially kids? So reading is key to increasing your ability to, 1, comprehend things, which is a very essential skill to have in life. 2, it builds vocabulary. 3, it teaches you to have an imagination instead of, say, playing on your phone and getting the constant stimulation, the constant dopamine hits. You're encouraging imagination when a kid reads. I am an avid reader. I love to read. I have books everywhere in my house and I read every single day. I didn't realize how rare that was. I planned my best friend's baby shower a couple years back, and instead of cards, I had all of the guests bring books. And that's my gift to any kid. They don't need more toys. They need more, first of all, what feeds their brain. Second of all, outdoors. The amount of time that children spend indoors is ridiculously high compared to even 10 years ago. And why are they indoors so much? Because everything leads back to an indoor activity. Most of the time, it is this, or an iPad, or a laptop, or a game of some sort. And that is so destructive to developing the proper skills you need for life. If you're constantly being shown little snippets of things, you're never diving into something. You're never actually understanding and analyzing something, which again, this is the society that raises children to be controlled. And so it's not surprising that they're using the power of distraction, and ADHD is a massive thing nowadays. It seems like every kid has ADHD or ADD. What if we just let them go and run around outside? What if we took away the screens and put them on a bike or gave them a ball and took them to the park? What if we actually had conversations with them about important life things that they're definitely not learning in school? They're missing so many basic life lessons in school. Most school curriculums do not include anything about finances or creative anything. Like creative writing is an elective in most places. I don't quite understand why present day USA is so set on inhibiting children's ability to find their individual selves. I came across a video the other day on YouTube, and it is with Michael Malice and Jordan Peterson, both pretty controversial characters, I'll admit, but they made a very, very good point and had a great conversation about the current school system.
Let's look about education. Why are we all going to school at the same time and learning everything at the same pace? It makes no sense. You might be better at math. I might be better at, history.
In age-graded groups.
Yes, it makes, and when you stop and think, you go, especially with technology nowadays, you can have dynamic testing. Okay, once a month you test, you stay here, you get extra help. That's fine. You can read ahead, but somehow we all have to start school at the same time, study everything at the same rate, and people who are worse than others, or not through any fault of their own, are punished. It makes no sense, but we never question it. And now, thanks to podcasting like this, you'd be like, wait a minute, this is kind of weird, isn't it? Why does everyone have to learn everything at the same rate and at the same time?
Well, you know that it was the school systems were established in accordance with the Prussian military model.
Yes, of course.
And that the goal there was to make obedient soldiers.
Create obedient soldiers? That's what our school system is based on. The public school system is based on. Well, we weren't thinking of children at all when creating that kind of system. It really all comes back to the home, because parents need to be involved in their children's life. We traveled to Switzerland for my birthday last year, and it was amazing. Well, mainly it's just an amazing country overall. My favorite part about riding on the trains was everyone either had a book out or they were talking to the person beside them. Tell me where you can see that in present day USA. You can't. So if adults aren't doing that, who are children supposed to be getting the example from? The intellectual skills, the social skills are severely lacking. Teachers don't feel empowered in their own classrooms because of how disrespectful children are. Most teachers work incredibly hard for terrible salaries so they can hopefully increase a child's intelligence or increase what they know. But kids nowadays, because of their home lives, aren't interacting with their teachers in the way that cultivates a positive relationship. They're arguing, or again, kids are not meant to sit down for that amount of time. And PE is a joke nowadays. PE was not my favorite period in school. However, I understand the benefits of having children get energy out in the middle of the day, just like recess in elementary school. That time to get energy out is essential if we're going to ask kids to sit still and focus in the classroom for 7 to 8 hours. Adults can't even do that. I know I am bouncing my leg or doing, I need to get up and walk around after even just an hour of sitting down. And that's as an adult. I can't even imagine what children feel like sitting in a classroom staring at a whiteboard or whatever they're using nowadays. Honestly, I don't quite even know. Maybe they're using smart boards. But regardless, as human beings, that is not an environment that cultivates anything positive in a person. It does serve its purpose, though, in creating obedient, controlled soldiers. Going back to quality time at home, it is incredibly sad for me to recognize that parents are having children and raising children, the future leaders of our society, the future of our society, but they don't realize the impact that even the little things each day can do to their child. And it's not just, feeding them unhealthy things, which again can result in bad future choices or bad health or various disorders. We crave quality time as humans, and a screen does not replace that. Most people sit their kids down and are either on their phones or their child is on a phone or a tablet or whatever electronic. And even though they're close to each other, that's not quality time. You need to talk to kids, not in a condescending way, but have a conversation with them. Ask them about their day. Ask them about their friends. Ask them about what interests them and develop those interests, because they're not getting developed at school. John Rohn said that time is our most valuable asset. And that is the most applicable quote to all of our lives, but especially to the time that parents spend with their children. I know just from my siblings that time goes by so fast. And we miss so much if we're not intentional about that time. If we don't actively seek out interactions, quality interactions with our children, with kids. There was also a video that I came across when I was scrolling. Let's give it a listen.
Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish? Swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless? Well, the time has come, no more excuses. I call school to the stand and accuse him of killing creativity, individuality, and being intellectually abusive. He's an ancient institution that has outlived his usage.
He put it so well. School systems literally kill creativity, kill individualism. They attempt to create everyone to be exactly the same, to not be able to think for themselves, to not question. Just think of the setting, 20 to 30 kids on average in a classroom, all the same, all similar ages, and one authority figure being the teacher. First of all, that ratio does not work. You can't put one person in charge of that many individuals and make sure that everyone is following along, is grasping what they're being taught. Kids watch every single thing adults do, whether it be their parent or their teacher or any other influential person, adult person in their lives. So we are their examples. So if we're not reading, they're not reading. If we are on our phones, they're on their phones. If we don't feed our bodies well and participate in activities, in physical activities that cultivate a healthy lifestyle, they're not going to either. Are we surprised? I once heard children are sponges. They'll soak up whatever they're around. Can't think of a better way to describe a child. Whatever a child is a result of their surroundings. So why are we not attempting to create more positive, cultivating environments for these children to figure out who they are, what their interests are, and then pursue those interests with them? We all have the same amount of time in a day. We decide what we do with it. And based off of that, it dictates not only our life, but our relationships. And the relationship between a parent and child is one of the most important relationships there is. It's one of the most influential, and it affects the child's life. Our actions as adults have direct connections to what the future generation is seeing. And we don't always recognize that children watch everything around them. Children are so observant. School systems aren't teaching for children to learn anymore, though. They're teaching for them to pass standardized tests, to do well on standardized tests. There are different types of intelligences. It's not all going to allow you to do well on a test. A child can be very, very smart in one subject and need more attention in another, but that doesn't mean they're dumb. However, standardized testing makes it seem that way. Essentially, we are not doing justice by children in present day USA. The three main things that go into it is their social interactions, which is family time, friend time, what they're doing in their non-school, non-scheduled time, their health, which that alone dictates their quality of life, as it does all of ours. And the habits that they're developing, the habits that the parents or the adults in their life are providing the examples for. Again, we may not think our actions have any impact on other people, but they do. It's like Newton's third law of motion. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we just need to keep that in mind with not just how we interact with kids, but just how we treat others, because kids are watching everything and kids are reliant on adults to be their guides and to show them how to live life. So if adults are just going to work, just coming home, being exhausted every day, and only surviving, but not doing anything to potentially thrive in life, then the kids will become exactly that. We need to be aware how much our actions affect others, particularly children in this case. But anytime we choose to go outside, go on a walk, eat an apple, drink water, those are all decisions that determine the quality of our life. And when we're doing those and kids see that, they will copy it. They will think, oh, this is what I need to do to grow up. And imagine if they see positive role models. They see their parents or parent going outside and spending time with them and cooking dinner with them or cooking breakfast with them or putting priority on the child's development, not on their own. Because when you become a parent, the child should be your priority. You obviously still take care of yourself, but that shouldn't be contrary to putting your child as a priority, because again, your actions directly influence your child and their quality of life. It's heartbreaking to learn that kids are not reading nowadays, that people in general are not reading nowadays, but kids in particular, because that's a foundational skill set to all learning. If you don't master reading and comprehension, then you set yourself up for failure in your learning in general. Reading is what unlocks imagination and comprehension and analytical skills. Not having to be stimulated by something, but learning to use our brain to create the stimulation for us. Reading is an escape. Reading lets you learn valuable life lessons. Most of those lessons, even if it doesn't matter what you're reading, you get something out of every single thing you read. And if adults aren't reading, why would kids? While I was looking into this, I saw a video that immediately caught my attention. As I said, I'm an avid reader. I consider reading one of my hobbies. I love to settle down with a good book and just get lost, just escape. But that is something that was instilled in me as a child. And it's not being instilled in children anymore because adults aren't reading. People aren't reading the way that we used to. This is the video I came across that caught my attention, and you'll see why in just a second.
At universities all around the country, professors are reporting a problem. Students can't read books. This is true even at elite colleges and universities. In one required class at Columbia, students are often expected to read about a book a week. But in the past couple of years, students have started telling their professors that they can't do it. One student told her professor that she had never been required to read an entire book.
How does someone make it to college and not be required to read a single book? When I was in school, we still had required reading lists with some great works on it. Again, the life lessons that most of my generation learned was from some of those required reading books. So this is mind-blowing to me.
This is part of a larger trend. People aren't reading anymore. This is true for men and women, people who went to college and people who didn't. So what's going on? Well, it turns out that there are many pieces to this puzzle, but it all begins with how we teach kids to read. For a very long time, we taught kids to read in a very particular way. We called it phonics. With phonics, you start with individual sounds. You work your way up from those sounds into more complex sounds, and then you see how those sounds build words. If you come across an unfamiliar word, you're told to sound it out. But starting around the 1960s, a new approach to language education emerged, and we called this whole language learning. In whole language learning and some successor ideas like balanced literacy, the idea was that you should learn to read at the level of a word. Using a method called 3Qing, students were taught to infer the meaning of words from context. This whole approach was pitched as a very natural, almost kind of organic way to teach kids how to read. The idea was that actually that kids had a natural propensity to read, and that all you needed to do was put them in the right context and maybe give them a few small techniques or nudges, and they would basically teach themselves how to read. You wouldn't have to go through a kind of boring process.
We don't do things just because they're not entertaining. When did if something is boring or not dictate learning a valuable skill set, which reading is the most valuable skill set, I'd argue.
During the pandemic, when more kids were learning at home, their parents got to see how ineffective whole language learning really was, and that added a lot of political will to solving the problem. More and more states and even countries are bringing back phonics into their reading programs. And while some of the insights from whole language learning might stay in the classroom, at least kids are going to be learning those basic building blocks, which the data do seem to indicate actually would help them. So maybe we'll see a turn in the future where more people want to read for pleasure again. For the students who were never taught phonics though, much of the damage is already done. In general, there's one more thing we have to talk about, and it's the phones.
I set mine to do not disturb when I'm reading because, again, it is a distraction regardless of how we don't want to admit it. Whenever a notification or something like that goes off on our phones, our brains immediately want to look because, again, that's how they've been trained.
So not only have we systematically failed students as we've taught them to read, or not taught them to read in some cases, we've also just designed a world that is there to constantly demand our attention, and that takes us away